Hey pals, welcome back to the Disney Magical Mindset Podcast. My name is Ruben, your Disney Magic mentor, and I'm here to help you silence the villain in your mind so you can become the hero of your story and unlock the magic that's already inside you. Today's episode is super special because this week, Disney California Adventure celebrated its 25th anniversary. 25 years, can you believe that? It opened on February 8th, 2001, and while I wish I can say I was there on opening day, I am grateful to say that I have been going to California Adventure since 2001. And if you've ever walked through those gates, if you've ever soared over California, if you've ever strolled Buena Vista Street or felt the emotional rush of Cars Land at sunset, then you're not just walking through a theme park. Guess what? You're walking through a story of mistakes, missteps, creativity under pressure, and one of the greatest comeback stories in Disney parks history. You see, what most guests don't realize is this: California Adventure didn't start out as the beloved park it is today. In fact, when it opened, many people thought it missed the mark. Now, I loved it. I really did. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, the California theme. But really, when it first opened, I also felt like something was kind of missing. Yeah, there was something that was kind of lacking, and we see the progression over the years. And, I just recently shared a reel, like a vintage, reel, nostalgic reel from the past. And I know we miss it because many of us we want to go back to 25 years ago. We remember what life was like. And so, yes, we love that. And there's this thing that just touches our heart when we look back on California Adventure when it first opened. But for many people, it was lacking. Something was missing. And this is why I love the story of California Adventure, because it truly is a comeback story. All right, it's a life story. It's about what happens when dreams meet limitations. It's what happens when business pressures collide with creativity. What happens when something opens before it's truly ready. And it's about what happens when you refuse to let your first version be your final version. So today, I want to walk you through some of the most powerful magical life lessons from 25 years of California Adventure. And as we go, I want you to think about your life. I want you to just reflect on your own personal life, your dream, your season, your comeback. Because if California Adventure can rise from a parking lot and become something special, guess what? So can you. So if you're ready, come on, let's do this, because here we go. We're about to spend some time looking at 25 years of California Adventure and the lessons that we can apply to our own life today. And listen, I wish this could be an episode where we talk about all the attractions. Like, I could spend this whole podcast episode talking about A Bug's Land. I really can. And maybe I need to do that one time. How Bug's Land is no more. And many people love Bug's Land, and it was replaced by Avengers Campus. And there's a lot of debate and conversation on whether that was the best move. And some people feel like Avengers Campus is just kind of a space that's wasted. We just kind of walk through, with the exception of, Guardians of the Galaxy and Mission Breakout and, Spider-Man. But hey, I know there's some new attractions that are coming. I'm excited for that. And I know it's always a challenge when we do new things, because every time you start to do something new, or you grow, or you're expanding, there's changes that are involved. And I know people just are resistant ultimately to change. But I really want to zero in today on a couple of lessons that I think we can really apply that will be beneficial to you, and lessons learned from this park that I really, really love. Yeah, I do. I know some people have different feelings about it, but I truly love California Adventure. And the first lesson is this. You ready for it? Here's the first one. Sometimes the magic comes from what you don't have. Yeah, I know. It doesn't sound very encouraging, does it? What do you mean magic comes from what I don't have? And I know the tendency is to feel like You have to see, experience, feel the magic. I gotta know it's right in front of me. I gotta know I have it. And that's why I keep telling you, man, the magic is in you. The magic is within. But sometimes the magic comes from what you don't have. When Disney planned their second theme park there in Anaheim, right? The Disneyland Resort, they had big dreams. There was this huge idea. It was called Westcott. It was big, bold, and expensive. But guess what? Westcott never happened. It was kind of like the Epcot, but on the West Coast. And I love the idea. I mean, it's pretty cool. Can you imagine an Epcot on the West Coast? Would have been amazing, but it never happened. In fact, it was scrapped pretty quick. Budgets got cut, timelines got tight, dreams got scaled back. And out of that pressure, guess what happened? Something beautiful was born. Soarin' over California. Think about that. One of the attractions, this most beloved, emotional, nostalgic, and like the best attraction that people like wait in line for, it was birthed and born out of these constraints or out of this magic that seemed to be squashed. And it's so easy to feel discouraged, or you want to give up when you're handed some cards that were dealt to you that you didn't like, or that you feel like right off the bat you're given something, you feel like you're giving something, someone's giving you something to set you up for failure. And here's what I'm trying to tell you: you have the magic in you. Whatever you get is not an excuse to stop from going forward, right? Like, I love how these Imagineers were like, okay, fine. Yeah, we wish we could get more. We wish we had more, but we're going to make it work. And out of that came Soarin' over California, right? During a season of limitations, they didn't have everything they wanted. They had to work with what they had. And instead of quitting, instead of giving up, instead of complaining, well, maybe there was a little bit of that, but they went forward with it, right? And they created something that made people cry, something that made people feel like they were flying, something that made people fall in love with California all over again. So here's like the magical life lesson. Some of your greatest moments won't come when everything is perfect. Right? They're going to come when you're forced to simplify, when you're forced to get creative, when you're forced to trust what you have is enough to start. What if the thing that you've been frustrated about is actually the thing that is being used to shape you into something beautiful? And I know, like, the mindset is when we feel like restricted, when we feel like the magic is gone, or we feel like somebody is limiting us, like, you get to decide, right? How you're going to reframe it. You're going to decide what limitations you're putting on yourself, because the limitation isn't blocking your dream. You got to just see it as an ability to refine that dream. Like, you have everything you need to do what you need to do, instead of just, retreating and saying, well, I don't have what it takes, or I didn't get what they were giving me. No, man, you make it work, just like these amazing Imagineers. Sometimes magic isn't born from having more. It's born from learning to use what's already in your hands. And I just want to encourage you. I want to empower you. I want to remind you that you have the magic in you. You have what you need to create the most beautiful magic from even a little. And that's how you get more magic, is you're able to create with the magic that you already have, instead of wishing and hoping and wondering and looking at what everyone else has and looking at what other cards everyone else has. Don't you know, like, when you play cards, like, the thing, if you've ever watched these amazing poker players, when they play, they don't, like, if they get a bad card that's dealt them, you don't just give up. Like, they're trying to see what can I work with? How do I hang in there? Let me see what other cards I'm going to get, right? Let me try and work this with what I have. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're not always going to be able to have, that magical experience where you have everything. I mean, sometimes it's amazing and it works out like that. But for the most part, for many of us, it's hard. It's going to take work. It's going to require discipline and heart and not giving up and being able to say, okay, day having the attitude that I need to create the magic, because I know that I'm not dependent on someone else to help me create the magic. I'm going to create it for myself, and I'm going to make the magic happen regardless of what somebody thinks about me or gives me, to work with. I'm going to do it because I bring the magic. That's what we do. Just like these amazing Imagineers who help us reimagine what's possible, right? Yeah. All right. The second magical, powerful life lesson from 25 years of Disney California adventure is this: a heart matters more than a strategy. Yeah, it's your heart, right? You can have a strategy all you want, but if your heart is not in it, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't feel that thing, like, the strategy on paper will only get you so far. Isn't that why we love Disneyland so much? I know this is about DCA, California Adventure, but isn't that why we love Disneyland? What Walt Disney created? Like, that I talked about this a couple weeks back. 10%, about 10% of Disneyland, was actually planned. Like, they had it on paper. But the rest, like, they were building magic as they went along. Can you imagine breaking ground and you only had 10%, about 10% of your plans, put together? And here is where the heart comes in, and we feel it. We feel it when we step into Disneyland. We feel it when we walk down Main Street, when we're experiencing the castle and the attractions. We feel the heart behind the strategy. That's what Walt gives us, and this is exactly what I'm saying. Kind of what people felt when they stepped into DCA for the first time when it opened. It was like lacking some stuff. And I think it was lacking that heart. It wasn't that the heart wasn't there, that people didn't feel that experience, right? Like, we know that a lot of people put effort because we see the heart that went into, I just talked about, soaring over California, but you know exactly what I'm talking about when you feel that going into Disneyland. And what happened in California Adventure is, in the early years of this park, I read this. I found this in the book Imagineering by Leslie Iwerks, a powerful, amazing book. But in one of the chapters, it talks about how business decisions started leading creativity. And so what happens is, when you start having business decisions that are leading creativity as opposed to story leading, this is what happens. Like, merchandise was before storytelling. Numbers were the things that was used or in favor of narrative. Efficiency was before emotion. And what happens during this time, what actually happened is the guests felt it. Imagineers felt it. Cast members felt it. Because Disney magic has never just been about what sells. I know we might think like that, especially because it's expensive. I get it. But understand that underneath all of that, it really is about the story. It's about what moves you. Because we all know that story is the thing that draws us in. When I think about Walt, one of the things that he wanted to be known the most for was being a storyteller, because we know that story is what actually sells. That's what keeps us coming back again and again and again, because we start becoming part of the story, and we start believing that the things that we experience in the parks are things that we can actually live and experience in our lives, like joy and happiness and the happily ever after. Like, we want that for us because we believe that deep down inside we can have that, right? And I want you to know that I do believe that, like, they caught on to this as they were building this park, and as it was continuing to grow and mature. They were going back and realizing what works and what didn't work. And they realized that it was more than just about what sold, what sells. It was about what moves you. And don't you know, or did you know, that story is the most powerful tool there is to compel the human brain? I mean, the average human brain spends 30% of the day daydreaming. And I know we think of daydreaming as something that's bad, but it's actually a survival mechanism, because your brain is trying to do two things. It wants to survive and thrive, and it wants to conserve calories. Those two things. So it's always going to move to story, because story is the thing is the most powerful tool that the brain desires, it craves because it wants to survive and thrive, and it wants to conserve calories. So, having said all that, here's the life lesson. You can optimize your life for productivity and still feel empty. Yeah, you can put a strategy down together and you can build a life that looks successful on paper, but you still feel empty because there's no heart behind it. You know, that's why there's so many people who are just losing the joy and not experiencing the magic in their life because it might look good on paper, which is kind of what it was for DCA when it started. They had the strategy, they had the productivity, but it still kind of lacked in the beginning, right? But then it changes. And it changes. And again, because your life, this one precious life you get, is not just about checking the boxes, right? There's more that we all want, right? We want to be part of a powerful story. It's the thing that I tell you, I'm here to help you, right? Become the hero of the story, to remember that you are the hero of your story, right? That you get to find meaning and create that happily ever after. And you don't do that by turning your life into just a spreadsheet. For what? To get to the end of the road and to look back and to be like, wow, look what I had on paper, but I didn't have in life? Nah, you got to let it become a story worth telling because your story is powerful. Wherever you are today, you got to understand you have a powerful story, and it's that story that you have, that you desire to live, that you know you were destined for. Like, that's the story. That's the thing that draws people into your life. Because the best stories always have heart. And if you've been grinding, pushing, striving, and you feel like a little lost, or you know that feeling when you just keep going through the motions and you're just going, but it's just you're not feeling something. You're not getting to where you want to go. Maybe it's your reminder to ask, where did the joy go? Where did the wonder go? Where did the why go? Because when heart leads, I promise you, magic follows. Okay, and the last thing I want to share with you from the powerful lessons of 25 years at DCA, this one might just be the best, right? We save the best for last, the most powerful, and here it is. Your Act 2 can be better than your Act 1. Yeah, you might have to say this one out loud, wherever you are. My Act 2 can be better than my Act 1. I need you to hear this right now. You have to remember that your first chapter or your third chapter or your fifth chapter is not your 20th chapter or your 30th chapter. Do you hear what I'm saying? I know it's easy to feel when I look back, or you look back over your life, you look at that chapter 1. Can you imagine if you stopped reading your book of life after chapter 2? Woo-hoo. Man, I'm so grateful that we get to read to chapter 5. If you read chapter 1 of my story, you'd probably be like, what is this guy doing talking to me right now in this podcast? Why am I even listening to him if you just finished chapter 1 and you finished that book? Oh, but I'm so grateful that there's still more chapters. Right? That there's still more acts, that there's still more to come. And this is exactly why I'm so inspired by DCA, because Disney didn't give up, right? There was still another act coming. They leaned in. They added Tower of Terror, which became Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. You remember that? They transformed Superstar Limo into Monsters, Inc. And I know Superstar Limo, man, that was short-lived, about a year. Some people actually still like that. They remember that. Nostalgia takes us back. And then, of course, Monsters, Inc., which we know sadly is going to close real soon here to make way for Avatar. They built a Bugs Land, which I love a Bugs Land. And I got to tell you, yeah, that one hurt a little bit when it left, man. That was tough to see a Bugs Land go, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that was a time in my life when my kids were really small. So memories, story. You see the power of story, how it connects us back to that. Yeah, they built a Bugs Land, and then they began to reimagine the park, and then the big changes, like the big things came. Remember Buena Vista Street? I remember when we weren't able to walk through what is Buena Vista Street right now. As they transformed it. Do you remember where the monorail would go over, and the Golden Gate Bridge was there, and the big sun wheel and the waterfall? Yeah, all of that came Carthay Circle. But I remember that we would have to enter the park close to the side area where the downtown Disney, the World of Disney is. Yeah, but the Buena Vista Street came, and then Cars Land. Remember Cars Land? And we just fell in love with Cars Land. It's amazing, beautiful, especially at night. And then Pixar Pier. Yeah, all these amazing things happen. And the park didn't just improve, it transformed, right? And even if you're not happy with some of the changes and the transformations, I know I've heard people talk about Avengers Campus and how some don't really care too much for it. But we see these changes and these desires and attempts to build a story and for it to transform. And I want you to hear this. Your first version doesn't have to be your final version. All right. Your first chapter is not your second or third chapter. You need to be kind to yourself and stop judging yourself based on your first act or your first chapter. Right? I know your slow start. Listen, you hear me. It doesn't mean it's a weak finish. Your early mistakes don't cancel your future. Your rough opening doesn't define your story. And that's what we see in California Adventure. Yeah, some of the best stories have the strongest Act 2s. Woo! Act 2s. You are in your Act 2. Come on, we're stepping into our Act 2. And some of the most powerful comebacks come after the biggest disappointments. So if you've ever thought today, I shouldn't be further along. I felt that. I know what that's like. Or I messed this up. Yep, I've been there. Or I missed my chance. I feel this. And maybe you feel it too. Friend, you might just be getting started. What a place to be. To reframe that and to pivot from just feeling like it's always negative, or I should be here by now, or I messed this up, or man, I had this opportunity. Okay, but that's done. And you are just getting started. It's about action. Act 2. Come on now, we in it now. Let's do this. Act 2, here we go. Yeah, maybe you're not behind. Maybe you're being built for a better second chapter, or third, or fourth. DCA didn't become beloved overnight. It took time, it took humility, it took a willingness to change. And so do we. So be encouraged today as we celebrate 25 years of Disney California Adventure. I hope you don't just see a theme park. I hope that every time you step through California Adventure, that you see permission. Like permission to grow, permission to adjust, permission to try again, permission to believe that your best days are still ahead. If Disney can turn a parking lot into magic, and I remember that parking lot very well right there in front of Disneyland. If Disney can turn criticism into creativity, if Disney can transform a rocky beginning into a beloved destination, then so can you, my friend, so can you. Your life is not a one-act story. Oh man, you know why? Because you get rewrites, you get upgrades, you get new chapters. And today, I need you to know this. You're not behind. Because you're building your Act 2. Ready, set, Act 2. Let's go. If this episode encouraged you, would you please share it with someone who needs a little hope, a little magic today? And remember always, my friends, you are the magic, because the magic is in you.